So there we are. Yes, we are here with Marcus Smith coming live and direct from Dubai. So like I just said quickly, we met 22 years ago. I know it's difficult to believe we're both that old, playing rugby in Leeds. And we've kind of been not massively in touch since. And Marcus first came back to my attention when I was coaching our mutual friend, Jimmy Pearson. Marcus and Jimmy went to school together at Worksop. So he is a local boy as well as living in Dubai. That is right, isn't it?
Yeah, from York originally, mate. So yeah, pretty local.
Yeah, and all three of us played rugby at Leeds together. So that was how we originally met. And then January 2019, I was PTing Jimmy, and he was like, "Have you seen what Marcus has done?" And I was like, "No, what?" He was like, "He's just run 30 fucking marathons in 30 days." And I was like, "What the hell?" And that was what started my running journey. That was the month when I ran my first ever marathon. So I put this thing out on social media. I'm like, if this guy can do 30 marathons in 30 days, I need to train to do one marathon in 30 days. And bearing in mind, I was kind of a 15-stone lump at the time. I did it, and that was the beginning of my journey. So I'm going to shut up now and head over to Marcus, because before he ran those 30 marathons in 30 days, something pretty fucking big and traumatic happened in 2018. So yeah, let's go back to your argument with a rather large Arctic lorry.
Right, thanks a lot. There's so much coming in my mind. We're sat here 22 years later. I've got this horrendous hair coming out the back. You've got no hair. All these things. And I'm like, anyway, I don't know why I've kicked off with hair, but mate, thank you. And good morning to everyone. Thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity, mate. It's wild. And I think before I answer your direct question, this is what's so cool about relationships, friendships, and why you should probably always put time and effort into them. I'm a lot about team, which I'll go on and talk about. But I think when we spoke, whenever it was, when we reconnected, mate, it was just like, bang. It was like yesterday. It was like we were back at uni, which I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. Anyway, I want to kick this off. I've told this story a number of different times, obviously in 2018, something which it's difficult really, because at the time, and in the immediate aftermath, maybe 12 months later or 18 months later, I was probably in denial that it changed my life. It's only really since 2020, I got a unique opportunity to spend 4 months on my own in lockdown with my wife in Australia and trying to balance what we all went through in 2020. And I really kicked off this insane, I guess, personal journey. And then I really started to realize how 2018 changed my life. I want to just create some context around it. One of my friend's wife called my wife at about 10 a.m. on February the 10th morning. She said to her, "Pack a bag, Marcus has had an accident." I thought so long and hard about how that would feel. My wife knew I was out riding my bike, but imagine getting a phone call that says, "Pack a bag, Marcus has had an accident." Mignon, the lady on the other end of the phone, said, "I'll come and pick you up in half an hour." And Holly, being Holly, just said, "Yes, cool." And then she put the phone down. And honestly, I've thought about, like, what the fuck was going through her mind? Like, she doesn't know anything. And then she starts to have all these thoughts. Well, where is Marcus? Is he okay? Why didn't Marcus call me? Mignon picked her up. She packed a bag. Actually, it was a bag for me. I wasn't going to need it because by the time she got to me, I was in intensive care, wearing hospital scrubs, which would be my clothing for the next 8 days. But she brought a bag of stuff for me. Absolutely selfless. Little did she know that she'd be staying in a hotel for a couple of nights and then sleeping in the hospital when I got out of intensive care. And this really drove it home to me of the power of the team, the power of the relationship I had with my wife, similar to what I just spoke about, the power of the relationship that as soon as Lee called me, we had this amazing connection again. And I thought a lot about it because when I had my crash, which, I don't know, these details are arbitrary to many, but in simple terms, I was riding my bike at about 60 kilometers an hour, a truck pulled across me, and I hit a wall at 54 kilometers an hour, stopped dead. But with me, I had an ex-professional cyclist who had seen a number of different crashes. And I had with me 2 airline pilots, one who flew 777s and one who flew 747s, Boeing, the double-decker one, not the Airbus one, the old double-decker one. So these guys immediately knew what to do. I laid there at the side of the road. The only way I can start to explain it, and I have a very interesting take on pain, which is simply, I can't really explain pain very much to you because we all feel it different. And pain and suffering for one person, be it physical or emotional, is completely different than the other. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you how much it hurt, but it was fucking painful. And I was laid there and I was like, I can't breathe. I was just so winded. And then I saw, you can make this as crazy as you want, Lee. It's just what happened. I saw this guy coming towards me. And as he came towards me, I started to bring blood out of my mouth. Blood started coming up from my mouth. And I had this really, what might seem quite comical thought of, I've seen this in a movie before and normally the guy dies. I was like, fuck. I'm 90 minutes that way from a hospital and I'm 90 minutes that way. I was like bang in the middle. I was in this perfect storm. And I was like, so it's going to take 90 minutes for an ambulance to get here and at least 90 minutes for an ambulance to get me to a hospital. And I was like, fuck. This is bad. And this guy came towards me. And for those of you that might be able to picture what, he was a Pakistani or an Afghani truck driver. So he's wearing the local garb, which it's not, but if you think hard about it, it could look like a ghost. And as he came towards me, I saw straight through him. And I saw the other side of the road, which was just a pavement, a curb. And as he came, I went through him directly. And I sat on the side of the road. And I looked over and I was like, gee, there's a lot of shit going on over there. My cyclist friend, 2 airline pilots, they're in like full relax, but full panic mode. They're just sorting everything out. One's gone to get the police, da, 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 da. And I'm just sat there watching it. And I'm like, that guy on the floor, he's me. But I'm not. And I was completely confused. And I had this insane out-of-body experience. And then I realized that actually that was my body over there. And I probably need to get back in it. And I had this really beautiful moment where I just thought to myself, I'm living this life and it's amazing. It has its challenges. There's lots of shit, still is now, including my haircut, that's fucked in my life. That's okay. But I want to get back into that body. And then I just had this other thought and I'm like, but when I was in that body a second ago, I couldn't breathe. I was in insane. The pain was fucking insane. Like it was nuts. I tell you, I won't explain the pain, but it really was sore and everything was hard. And I thought to myself, how am I going to make this work? And I was like, I'm going to jump over there and I'm going to fight for every single breath because that's what it's going to need. And with that thought, I sort of hop back into this body. I'm there, I'm wailing on the floor. I'm in this pain, this blood's coming out of my mouth. Fast forward 2 hours. I've gone through 2 different ambulances to get to ICU. And finally, the radiologist comes and says to me, you've had quite a bad accident. I don't know, but it's perspective, isn't it? Because you probably see shit like this every day in A&E, you know? And I'm like, yeah.
No shit, Sherlock.
He goes, he said to me, you've shattered your scapula on the left side. So as the truck hit me, in that split second, your mind just kicks in, and I drop my shoulder as I'm tackling rugby, and it hit the wall, shattered my scapula. I was like, okay, that's not bad. He said, you've broken 7 of your ribs. I was like, that explains why it's fucking so sore. I was like, but why can't I breathe? And he said to me, he said, you have what we call a lung hemothorax. And one of a better explanation, it's almost like when you're at the beach as a kid and you're playing with that beach ball, and then it hits a rock or a shell and it just goes psh. So my left lung, it basically just collapsed. That's also why all this blood was coming up, so the impact was so strong. He said, and that really, and that's what I thought. I was like, bones will heal. I said, but this lung thing, I kind of need it. Like, it's kind of important. He said, yeah, that's why we're worried about you. And that's why we're going to put you up in intensive care. Wow. I was like, where's Holly? What's going on? And a lot of it's not a blur, but it's weird feelings, which sometimes are hard to describe. I try my best. I'd never been in intensive care before, and I quickly learned that it's pretty rough. Like, there's only one reason why you're in intensive care, or 2. One is you're just about to die, and the other is you're dead. Like, they don't put you there just for the crack. You go to the normal ward. And sorry if that's a bit raw for some people, but that's just the reality. And I'm laid there, and it's like just curtains and someone dying next door. And I was like, fuck, this is for real. Holly walks in, amazing. She's just like, are you okay? And you know what? I was breathing. It was hard. They'd stuck a big tube into my lung to try and drain all the blood off. And I was just like, yeah, I think I am okay, mate. I said, I think I'll be all right. And that lasted for about half an hour. And I'll try and go a little bit quick here because maybe there's some questions there, and I don't want to just make it a big, boring fucking story about a crash that they made it my documentary about. But there's some quite sort of important points. When she comes in, I'm high. Like, I was high from the drugs, but it's like it lifted me up. And then very quickly, I went into this insane low. I woke up and I looked at her and I said, why me? And I adopted this victim mindset, as we do. And it's natural. I genuinely think it's natural, because I had 3 other mates with me that they didn't get hit. And 5 minutes before, I was at the back of the group, but then I went to the front of the group. So you're obviously going to ask, like, why me? Why has this happened? And this is where she's not only my best friend, my wife, my partner for life, my everything, but she's just so clear sometimes. And a lot of the times she's super emotional and stuff, but she looked at me when I woke up and I was like, why me? Why me? Like, what happened if, and this and that and the other? And she just looked at me and she goes, it happened. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, this is where I need you to like just hug me and cry with me and all this shit. And I was like, oh, that's not what I fucking was thinking I was gonna get. And I looked at her and I thought, motherfucker, you're right. She was right. And with the thought, I sort of rolled back. I didn't roll. I couldn't move. I was like laying on the bed like this arm didn't work and all sorts. And I laid there, and 2 minutes later, I looked at her and I just started smiling. She's like, "Why are you smiling?" I said, "You're right." I said, "But you know what?" She said, "What?" And I smiled bigger. I was like, "I'm going to start training right here and right now." I've been in intensive care like 4 hours. She looks at me and she's just like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Like, just like her face is saying all these things. And I'm like, "Watch this." Bearing in mind that when I crashed, I was laid on my right-hand side because all the damage was down my left lung, my left scapula. And you wouldn't know, like, I'm into all this anatomy shit, like train people and stuff. Like, just to move your hand, you need your scapula. Like, when they teach you anatomy, you believe them, but you're like, nah, it's like that. The fingers are here and the scapula's here. Yeah. And I just tried to lift my hand up. I'll bring it up to the screen so you can see it. My hand was kind of on my side like this. And I looked at it and I was like, if I can just turn this guy from palm down, and I'm fighting, mate, I can't tell you, like, it's the hardest thing I've ever done. And I finally got it, palm up. And literally, I'm sweating in the bed, in the hospital bed, and she's there just fucking thinking I'm an absolute dickhead. And I looked at it and I was like, if I can get it to there, maybe I can get it back. And if I can do it once, well, maybe I can do it 10 times. And that's really where it started, mate. I just looked at this hand and I just went like this. And this is a lot faster than I was doing it. And I did 10 and I was completely destroyed. Completely destroyed. And I went back to sleep. And I kept waking up every hour and I'd keep doing it. So what does it really come down to? You know, and those small wins, or those small mindsets, they just keep going. And I think we can talk about those different examples. I think it comes down to 3 real things, mate, or people. So I feel like sometimes I'm talking to you, but I should be talking to the people. I should get better at public speaking. Anyway, I digress. What it comes down to, number 1, is your team, which I started with. The second thing it comes down to is the ability to create ultimate focus at times where everything is fucking against you, where you have every reason. It's every natural human feeling and emotion is going against what you should be doing.
Yeah.
If you can create focus in those moments, shit fucking changes. It absolutely changes. The body and the mind, human beings defend themselves insanely well, sometimes way too well. And we have feelings that are so natural. Speak to them. Acknowledge them. Accept them. Create awareness around them. And then go in your way. You don't have to ignore them. I wasn't trying to ignore that my accident happened. I'm not trying to ignore anything. But if you can create focus on the solution, shit really changes. And the third, if the ghost story of the Afghan guy didn't freak anyone out, this one does. My accident was on the 10th of February, 2018. On the 9th of February, 2018, and this is not for clickbait, this is absolutely true. On my Instagram, MJD_Smith, go and see what I wrote. It says, it's a quote, it says, everything happens for a reason. So I'd look like a real dickhead if I didn't believe that. No, that was a joke. It's not a joke that it was there. Things happen in our lives for a reason. At the moment, we might not see the reason. It's like that feeling will come and you're like, I don't want it to come. It's happening for a reason. Don't try and block it. Don't try and numb it out. You might see the reason later on. I see the reason now. As you said, Lee, in the opening, towards the end of that year, 2 amazing things happened in my life. I ran 30 marathons back to back and I turned 40. 2018 was probably one of the best years of my life. I nearly lost it at the start. I then learned so many things to build it up again. I then thought, holy shit, I can help a load of people and maybe inspire one or two people by running these marathons. And then I hit a milestone in my age. And it's kicked off, as I said, it changed my life. And it's absolutely beautiful. I wouldn't want it any other way. I hope no one has to go through it. That's what we always say, isn't it? Like, we do need these big events in life. They make us think different. And my life would have been totally different. I'm sure I've been able to help a lot of people in a different way because what it's taught me, my mind's changed. But things happen the way that they happen, and they can't happen any other way because they didn't, you know, and that's what's beautiful. So sorry, mate, that's a long.
No, it's cool.
Anyway.
It totally builds in, because what I think is so big, and again, just talking from, you know, personal experience, you know, I've told the story a million times about, you know, my mum dying when I was 6 months old, my dad abandoning me, and obviously then building back into 2013, breaking my neck. And only last year, in the beginning of the year just gone, 2022, having major surgery on my nose, which meant that I couldn't speak for the first 8 weeks of the year, which, as you know, is Fitness Freshers Week. And I needed to be live in my business more than ever. So again, 3 things that you can adapt, that I for years adapted a huge victim mindset towards. And also what a lot of people don't know is, you know, 3 months after breaking my neck, my granddad died, who was my only role model, and I got divorced all in the space of kind of 3 months. But now, having gone through this mindset journey, it's like, well, you know, if the stuff hadn't have happened with my dad that did happen, I wouldn't be such an amazing parent to Logan. So I'm grateful for what he did, and I can say thank you to him because I accepted the lessons. I wouldn't now have a business that makes what it does without making sales calls, had I not smashed my nose to pieces and learned how to enroll clients without speaking to them. And again, had I not broken my neck and gone into depression and hit all-time low, I wouldn't have now impacted thousands of lives and prevented people from suicides and everything else. So it completely builds into that. And it's, you know, the way I kind of try to describe it is exactly what you've just said, is there is always a lesson and a gift in every situation. And we get to choose, do we make this our victim story and our struggle? Or do we say, right, how do I use this as my strength? How do I accept this? And how do I move forward? So it's amazing to hear. Yours is just a different level. I was quite emotional listening to that. Wow, just insane. So take us into the 30 marathons in 30 days.
So this actually started, like, it's interesting, isn't it? People that do stupid shit, like actually figuring out where it all starts, you know, or these, I refer to stupid shit as long endurance challenges, which I've sort of built my life, because that's how people sort of refer it to me, but there's a lot of deeper ones. So to be honest with you, I was 3 days in intensive care, and then I think it was the 3rd day that I was in the main ward, and I was sat in my hospital bed. One of my friends had sent me something like 6 months before, and I'd not really read it, to be honest. It's like, you know, people send you a lot of things and you have a quick look at it and it doesn't resonate and you just kind of bank it, and I'll get to it one day. Anyway, I went back to it, and it was a route across Corsica, the island of Corsica, south of France.
Yeah.
And I started reading about it, and it was like, fuck, this looks super cool. It was like almost 200 kilometers. You go like diagonally across it, and it's got like 12,000 meters of elevation. And I sort of deployed a bit of my nerdy motivational shit. Like, I don't always need a big goal, but I'm the same human that you guys are, that looking into a big goal releases an insane amount of dopamine, and we feel fucking great. Like, it's really cool. So
you need a mission.
You need a mission, mate. And I have a really good friend of mine who's also like, he just says yes to any stupid idea that I come up with, and I say yes to any stupid idea that he comes up with. And I just sent it to him. I was like, he was a teacher at the time. He now works with me, which is it's a super beautiful story as well. And I sent it to him, and I said to him, what day do you break up from school for summer? So I'm sat like Feb the 14th or 15th and can't lift my fucking hand, all this shit. And I sent him this thing to run across Corsica, and he's like, he actually for the first time sort of tried to pull me into line and said, mate, why are you even thinking about this? Just crack on. And I just wrote back, I said, I'm not fucking joking, man. And that was like, you know, the whole recovery story is it's not sexy at all. Like, it's really fucking hard, right? You know, I remember doing 100 rounds of Tabata, literally 4 exercises. One of them was stepping on a box that was in like a floor mat as a box step up that was 1 inch high, just trying to go up and down because that's all I could move my body. And the others were just literally trying to lift my arms to here. Imagine doing Tabata like this. Like, it's fucking crazy. But I could do that because I was working towards this sort of goal. And when I was looking at that, I was like, I sort of, you know, you do like a deep dive and everything happens for a reason. You come across a book, and I came across Dean Karnas's book, which was 50 marathons in 50 states in 50 days. And there's a local initiatives here, which is 30 marathons. A little bit of the backstory while I was actually cycling, I was trying to break a world record in ultra cycling, 1,000K races on 4 different continents. I was trying to be the first person to do it. I didn't actually do one of the races because I got hit in the crash before the first race started. And I was like, I wanted to do something that made an impact this year. And I was like, I can hop on the back of this local initiative and I can run a marathon every day, you know? And I was like, what's the worst thing that can happen? And that's really where it sort of kicked off. So it was the Corsica thing, and because my had an increased attention on running. I've always run since I was a kid, but I'd sort of increased my attention to it. I just was, and that's something that I think is team that I spoke about at the start is people, but I think team couples very closely with environment. So yes. If I'm looking into something, and it's dopamine, mate. Like, I'm playing around with different ideas at the moment. YouTube's just filling me with these videos that are on the genre of what I'm Googling. And, you know, there's a lot of negatives of tech these days, but there's some really good positives, because every time I open my YouTube, I just get pumped with stuff that just makes me want to go, I'm going to do it. You know, so it's like, so you fill your ecosystem with your team, and that's where the concept came from. And I was just like, you know, let's see if I can do it, you know. And it wasn't, I never really look at something and I go, oh, such and such did, you know, so many, or, you know, there was a guy in the UK that ran one every day of the year last year. He was on the BBC last week or something, you know. And it's not about that, you know. I think I had a lot of ego when I was younger, through rugby, through everything. Like, I think you generally do, and I don't think that's bad. Again, it happened for a reason, you know. If you're still 45 and driving stuff off, I'm 44 now, if you're still like my age and you're still only driving stuff for your ego, I think that's a problem. But, you know, I didn't have, that was not any of my motivation. I didn't want to beat a record. World records actually don't really mean anything to me. I respect everyone that's done something under Guinness. Like, I think it's awesome. It's a great benchmark, and full respect, but it just doesn't, I would say, mate, it doesn't give me a boner, but someone might be upset about that. So
we talk about stiffies all the time. It's fine. So I think, again, 2 things there, and again, it's what we've drilled down on the past, when, you know, when you've said, obviously you were lying in this bed and you were just turning your hand. One of the key things that I hear from the guys, there's 39 people watching, by the way. They struggle with, that's only 3 more than yesterday for me, by the way. So motivation is this word that cracks up time and time and time again. I don't have motivation. I can't seem to get myself motivated. I need you to motivate me, Marcus. And what you just said there rang so true to me, because you were in this bed, not being able to do anything, but you already knew about this thing that you were working towards. And what I say to people so often is they're like, I don't have motivation. And I'll be like, well, how do you want your life to look? How do you want your body to look? How do you want your relationship to look? How do you want your career to look? How do you want to be as a parent? How do you want to be as anything? How do you want your life to look? And they're like, I'm not really sure. And I'm like, well, there's no surprise you don't have motivation, because you don't need motivation. What you need is you need to know what you want and where you're going. Otherwise, you've got nothing to be motivated towards.
Yeah. And it's a really good point, mate, because a lot of the time, like, a lot of people will contact me and, oh, you ran 30 marathons in 30 days. You must have insane mental resilience. Can you help me? And I'm like, sure, I can try. I'm like, well, what really is resilience? They're like, oh, it's a super strong mindset. And I'm like, yeah, but what's that? So what actually starts is we have to start to understand what the mind is. We have to understand, A, that it's part of the body. So all this shit is we're one being, human being, you've heard it all before. But we need to start to understand ourselves more wholly. Like, I can sit here and I can make stories and give you examples, and you do the same, Lee. And like at the start, I was like, wow, I'm fucking pumped up. This song is wicked. Like, but that doesn't
last.
Force me to ask myself, like, what actually makes me happy? The easy option is to go to those dopamine fueled things. The hard option, and this is a great challenge for people, sit with no distraction for 90 seconds a day. Don't move. Open your eyes, close your eyes, do whatever you want. Sit on the floor. Don't sit on a chair. Sit on the floor and just be. It's totally unique in this day and age. Then you start, and if you can do 60 seconds, a lot of you are laughing right now. You're like, what's this idiot talking about? 60 seconds? Trust me, you can't fucking do it.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's hard, mate, and you know this very well. But what we start to do there is and some days, honestly, I sit and I'm like, after 2 minutes, I get up. My mind is not there. It's not there. And I don't need to fight it. I've got a lot on my mind, and you don't sleep well every night. Like, it's okay, as long as you understand why you didn't sleep well that night.
Yeah.
But you need to spend this time with yourself to think. People like you, Lee, myself, all we're doing is we're just trying to hold up this mirror for you. All that we're talking about here is we're asking you questions that we want you to ask yourself. Take bits of what we're talking about, take them away. Think about them. Don't fucking Google them. That's the worst thing you can do. Like, people spend a disproportionate amount of time researching and Googling stuff. Google is not smart enough. It might be, if Elon Musk gets his way, we might get there, that it knows exactly what you're thinking and how you're feeling. But right now, it doesn't. So spending more time in research and less time in creating awareness around our feelings is making this divide even bigger. And that's one of the biggest threats right now. The best thing you can do to build mental resilience, to live a better life, all of that stuff, is just spend time. And people don't do it. It's fucking hard. Really hard.
And just be you, I think, and get to grips with what you want, which builds us nicely into the next thing that I'm going to kind of discuss, because, we had a lot of conversations this year, but I think, again, a question that people ask me a lot is like, whether it's my business coaching clients or as athletes, it's like, Lee, how do I know what I want? Or, how do I be authentic as a coach? And I'm like, it should be effortless, because the fact that you are asking me what you want, you're looking for validation and certainty from me of what you want. The fact that you're asking me how you be authentic as a coach means that by default, you're being inauthentic, because neither you or I are trying to be authentic now. It's just effortless. We'll say fuck, say cunt, we'll say bollocks, we might cry, we might laugh, we might be happy. And when you're truly authentic about who you are and what you want, it's effortless. What people experience is inauthenticity, which is when we end up wearing this mask because we have these insecurities, because we're not okay to say, actually, do you know what? This is what I want. And I remember the conversation we had. I was like, and again, I was always open and honest about it. Like, I massively underestimated the fan dance. I remember saying to you, mate, this is 24K. This is a piece of piss. I want to fucking smash it. And you're like, yeah. Here he goes again. And I was completely fucked for a month. And then we had a conversation about the marathons, and Marcus was really honest. He said, listen, mate, there's two things here. One, if you're not ready, you're not ready. Two, let's just have a little bit of kind of meditation. You know, are you actually enjoying this? Because again, what a lot of people go into is what's called the sunk cost fallacy. So I've said I'm going to do this, and I've put this much time into doing it, so I'm going to do it, even though I'm fucking hating it. I'm not enjoying it. It's fucking wank and it's pissing me off every day. So Marcus said, you know, let's set it back and let's just focus on training and figure out whether we're actually enjoying this, because if you're not, what's the point? Okay. So, and again, that builds us nicely into there's two things I want to finish on here, because they were so poignant to me this year in our conversations. Tell us a little bit about what's happening with your mum currently and how you're handling it.
Thank you, mate.
Social media won't even see, because they'll just see focused, happy, smashing it, living the dream. Somebody this guy have a screenshot of you. Fuck me, these guys, look at their life. But we've all got shit going on.
Yeah, mate, thanks for asking that question. Always and I thank you all for being here today, for giving me this opportunity. Every time I'm able to tell my story, it's therapy for me. And I've realized that over the years. I've been on hundreds of different podcasts and blah, blah, blah. So this is a great question, mate, and it helps me a lot. And as you can probably see earlier, sometimes when I tell my crash story, I really have to think about it, and it's quite emotional. So I hope that hold it together.
I was emotional watching it. I was well enough.
So yeah, long story short, my mum, she's 77 years old, and she spends a bit of time with me here in Dubai. She's one of my mum and my dad are my biggest sort of mentors for running and obviously for life. And in April this year, she was here. She still goes to my classes here at my gym at Innerfight. And she was around at my house, and my dad said, I think she's got something wrong in her stomach and she won't go to the doctor because she doesn't think it's bad. Anyway, fast forward 3 weeks, she was diagnosed with advanced stage ovarian cancer. And I was speaking to her on a Sunday. They'd gone back to the UK. My dad had gone away for the weekend to sort something out, and she was outwardly in discomfort and quite upset. And I said to her, Mum, I think you need to go to A&E. And she said, there's no one to take me. Bearing in mind, just to give this some sort of scale, she's one of 13, of which 10 or 11 are still alive, and I have over 60 cousins. So there's fucking someone to take her, right? But there was this denial from the start, which lesson number 1 was amazing. I was like, she's incomplete. She knows she's in trouble. Second point is, it was a Sunday afternoon, A&E will be super busy. I don't want to sit there for hours. So it's just an incredible story. 7 o'clock on the Monday morning, I get a message. She's been diagnosed with advanced ovarian cancer. I would imagine that I've never been told that. Maybe some of you have. But until you've been told that, and everything that we've preconceived or preconditioned our minds to believe about cancer probably start to play out. You probably know more people that have passed away from cancer than have survived it. It's fucking brutal. And it would be unnatural if those thoughts didn't come into her mind, I believe. But because it's fucking crazy, everything happens for a reason. In March of 2021, a client of 8 years was diagnosed with pretty terminal liver cancer. And he came to me and I said, I wanted to go on the journey with him. And I look at it now, he was just preparing me for what was coming with my mum. So when we got to it, yes, it's brutal. And yes, for May, June, and in July, when I was due to come back to Dubai and I had to leave her in the hospital. And she was, in simple terms, she was really pretty fucked. Yeah. She'd gone down to about 40 kilos. She couldn't leave the bed. She couldn't eat. She couldn't go to the bathroom. If you can't have a bowel movement and you can't eat and you can't move, as I'm sure a lot of you would appreciate, life goes down fast. And during that time, a friend of mine who's a nurse in the NHS, an incredible guy, Paul Jones, has an amazing podcast, Normalized Activity, which I highly recommend to everyone. It's not a plug, it's just it's a very small show, but it's such a great show. He sent me a book called Being Mortal by a gentleman called Atul Gawande. And it changed my life again. I'm not sure how many times I can say it changed my life, but it enriched my life. And it did something that, I don't want this to sound sort of morbidly, because I think it's a great question, but it for the first time, and my dad had been telling me this since I was a kid, but I think I never wanted to believe it. And I'm sure a lot of people have been through, I know you have, mate, through people passing away. I dealt with the fact that my mother would die. And that's quite a weird thing to say, maybe, but I made peace with it. Yeah. I also made peace with the fact that I could only help her, just what we were saying before, to a certain point. Yeah. I couldn't. We have all these ideals, don't we? And in Being Mortal, these ideals that you have of, you know, when my parents get older, when this happens, they don't give a fuck. They're not you. My mum has been programmed for 77 years one way. She's been programmed to wake up every morning and put makeup on her face and go to aerobics. That's just the fucking way she is. Yeah. It doesn't make it right, but it doesn't make it wrong. And just because she's had some cancer, it's not going to change the whole thing. And that's the hardest thing. When people are getting old, when we're seeing people in compromising situations, we're trying to force ourselves onto them. We want it to play out the way we want it to play out. She doesn't want to admit that she's got cancer. For 3 or 4 weeks, she didn't even tell her best friends. She didn't want to go out. She didn't want to tell people she was going for chemo. What I could be was there to sit with her, to support her, to listen to her. And she said one thing to me on one of my trips back. I was trying to go back every month. She said, you just being here helps me. I was like, what? I was like, I want to clean the house. I want to do. She's like, just being here is enough. I was like, fuck, this is nuts. I'm happy to say now she's been through 6 rounds of chemo. After about 3 rounds, it kind of stopped working. The cancer is under control. She's now on a tablet form of chemo. She has learned to, and these are 2 of the biggest things. If I can leave you with 2 things today, these are 2 of the huge things. She's learned to, and I think, obviously just because it makes me feel better, I think I've taught her these. What are you excited about today?
Mate, that's literally, that's on the planner. I swear to God, every single one of our clients, every single person watching this right now has a day planner to fill in every day. And the question is, what am I most excited about today? What am I doing today that sets my soul on fire?
And honestly, mate, like, you've given it to them in that. I was like, how can I get that over to her? So I would just call her every single day and answer the two questions. How has today been? So I call her every single night. And as she's now got better, she's not bedridden, she can go out, she can walk, her weight's come up, she's about 46, 47 kilos. So she's doing better. Why? Because she can eat and she can move. Insane. That's okay. The chemo's brought the cancer down, but she can do that. And I just, every single day, I was like, so what's happening tomorrow? What are you excited about for tomorrow? And, you know, it's fucking crazy because we're sat here talking about stupid runs across Corsica and marathons, but I would get excited that she's getting up and going to Waitrose.
Yeah.
Like, it made my fucking day, you know? And I would try and give her this energy that was just amazing. And it is, because when I was there in July, she was in a hospital bed. And, you know, so she's doing better because she's managed to grasp these two, the simplest concepts, you know? And yeah, mate, it's taught me a shitload. It's made me read a little bit more on mortality, probably that book and only a couple of others. I read quite a lot anyway, but it's sort of pushed my reading a little bit down there. But it's definitely, and this is, to be honest, guys, I'm suffering as much as everyone else is suffering, and I have my outlet. My outlet is endurance sports. I go out on my own or with my friends, and I just fucking love it. I train about 20 to 24 hours a week, endurance, whether it's running, cycling. I do a lot of strength work as well. But that's my medicine. And I go away on trips and adventures. I just call a couple of mates. We're going in a couple of days for 24 hours. And we just do this kind of stuff because that's what really helps us. And it's helped me. It goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's helped me create a space where I can just think or not think. And bad thoughts come, you know, but I've accepted that we're mortal. I've accepted that mum will die. I hope she doesn't die before she's felt better in a weird way, because I feel like it kind of just got her, you know, which it wasn't a heart attack. So it's kind of like, but it was just like she was living this life. And I'm like, I think it's made her realize that there's a couple more things that she wants to do. And if she can do them, that would be absolutely amazing. And if she can't, that's part of life as well. So yeah, it's pretty cool, mate. It's not super easy to talk about. So maybe my thoughts are a little bit jumbled on it, but hopefully something I've just said resonates with someone.
It's just something I want to drill down on with people, because I think society has created us to be a certain way around grief. And when COVID happened, I massively researched the Kubler-Ross model of grief in terms of how things happen. So even when Marcus described it there, it kind of goes through these periods, okay? So exactly what happened with his mum. So something happens and we're in denial, okay? This might be your physical health, your mental health, a relationship ending, a career, anything. From denial, we normally go to anger, which is like Marcus said, why me? Why the fuck is this happening to me? Why now? Why my mum? Why not someone else's mum? We then have the kind of what's called the bargaining, or like I renamed it the shoulda, woulda, coulda. So, you know, if only I'd have known my granddad was going to die on February the 14th, I'd have spent more time with him. But we can't change that. It's gone. Which will bring me on to something else Marcus said. We then have the final stage, which is the finding meaning. And this is what's happened here. So it's like, when this situation happens, and it might be a relationship ending, it could be COVID, it could be an injury, it could be what's happened with Marcus's mum, it could be anything that's happening in your life. I know some of your loved ones this year have had cancer, and it's really hit you hard. And I know some people have experienced grief. Only in September, one of my good friends, Jamie Roy, died. And it's about, for me, it's about, we cannot change the situation. And as long as we focus on things that we can't change, we will always feel weak and disempowered. Whereas when we focus on what we can control, we'll be strong and empowered. But moving through that cycle as quickly as possible to find meaning doesn't make you selfish. And, you know, something that I've experienced is when something happens like this, people allow it to instantly cripple their life straight away. I have no headspace for training. I have no headspace for healthy eating. I have no headspace for anything at all. All I'm going to do is sit here and focus on the thing that I can't change and worry and cry and get upset. And when me and Marcus did, I think I mentioned this to you guys because we were laughing at the time. We said, like, we are two morbid fuckers here. But when we had that conversation, he was like, mate, at the end of the day, we're all going to be fucking dust one day. And that was, again, how I dealt with, like, you've got to imagine, like, in September, 1 minute, like, Jamie Roy's in Ibiza DJing on a boat at 36 years old. 10 days later, when I've come home, he's fucking dead in Manchester. And it's like, anything like that can cripple you, but like essentially it's happened and it sounds morbid. And, you know, Paul Moore gave me some great coaching on this, which again, Marcus might develop on a little bit more, but, you know, you can allow that to cripple you and you go into a depression about the situation that's happened. Or it's like, well, you know, I'm devastated that my granddad died and I'm devastated that Jamie died, but, you know, I've got 8 seasons of snowbombing with him to remember. Magic memories. His music's going to stay around forever. I'm going to play one of his records in every set that I ever do. I'll have a moment at snowbombing about this shit and I'll remember the good times and find the meaning in what's happened. And again, the same with my granddad. People were like, when he died, I went to the gym the next day. They were like, are you some kind of like sick fuck? And I'm like, 1, he'd be proud of me. And 2, what is me not going to the gym today and getting pissed and sitting in a room with everyone else drinking gin, is that going to make me feel better or worse about the situation? But we feel guilty, right?
It's interesting, mate, because like when I was going over to see my mom, I don't know, everything happens for a reason, right? But the first time I went over, I was able to tag on going to Germany where I had a client doing a backyard ultra and setting a world record. And the second time I was then able to go and race in Ireland. The third time I was at a camp in Chamonix in France. And it was only the third time I was like, am I being really selfish here? It was only the third time that I realized what power me living gave to my mum.
Absolutely.
So the fact that I was able to bookend the trip or however, like combine it, was super powerful. Like it was hard, but it's like you said, like, what does mum want me to do? She just wants me to go out and do shit, because it goes back to what I was saying as well, is we think we need to sit there, or we think dealing with it in those certain ways. Some of the examples you picked up is what people want to do, but you know, how can you have that conversation? And this is what it comes down to. It's like having these conversations with people, like where you're just completely vulnerable to them, and you're just like, what do you want? What's going to make you happy? Do you want me to clean the house, or do you want me to leave all your shit where you've had it for the last 50 years? You know, and of course she just wants me to leave it where she's had it. Do you want me to stay 2 weeks, or do you want me to go and, you know, run on Mont Blanc and fucking be a complete goose? She wants me to go and be a goose on Mont Blanc because she knows that's what makes me happy. And her seeing her son do that, that's what brings her happiness, you know? And that's it, mate. Like, it's so hard, mate. Like every time I would leave her, and even now, mate, every day I speak to her, like it's because it's still quite fresh, right? You know, and I'm still processing. I'll be processing it for a long time, but it's like, it's this choice. And I'm like, what would mum want me to do? She just want me to go out and live. And I do want to do that. You know, and we go through all those emotions that you've spoken about. And like I said at the start, like if you're not having those feelings, you've actually got something wrong. Like, it's okay. All of this shit's okay. Like, but what it's not okay to do is it's not okay not to create awareness around it. It's not okay to try and block it out. And it's not okay to try and sort of detract from it by doing something else. What is okay is to process it, to talk about it.
Be vulnerable.
Yeah, totally, mate. You know, and I think that's one of my biggest learnings from definitely from mum as well, and also from all this shit. And it all just fits in. But that's what is the hard work a little bit, mate. It's the ability in the heat of the battle just to take a breath, sit back, and just kind of remove yourself and just look in with a little bit of logic. And then look into this, and we've spoken about the bigger picture, but look at the big picture, you know? And shit starts to change. And I think, you know, as you said, Lee, like a lot of people have been through a lot of stuff here. You know, I'm not special. I'm just the same as anyone else. You know, people have had accidents. There's been cancer, and people do cool shit. You know, that's fucking life. You know, and that's really awesome. But the way that you look at it and what you take from those things, because of the time that you take to come out of the situation, look in and just be cool with, you know, just a couple of deep breaths, and then you move forward, and you make this choice, as you've said a number of times, mate, about how you're going to move forward in your life. You know?
Okay, so I know I've taken enough of your time. 2 quick things before we wrap it up, because we appreciate you being here so much. I think 2 things that have run through this entire, and these again, 2 things. I always credit people. These are both from Paul Moore, who's one of my mentors, including you and Ollie Carson, and all the other coaching, help and support that I get. Because like we've said, it's so important who we surround ourselves with in our environment. And I specifically seek out people who don't blow smoke up my arse, don't give me their respect easily because I want to earn it. But 2 things to drill down on there is throughout this thing, you've subconsciously said it so many times, and Paul says it all the time. Questions are the steering wheel of the mind. So rather than often accepting your thoughts, making statements, having this fixed mindset, like you said, if we can just step out and ask ourselves a great question, like, what can I do to change my state right now? What can I do to help mum? What can I do to make myself feel better today? Is a massive way to move forward. And also, you know, Marcus saying there, I see him as very special. You guys might see me as special, and we all look at other people in this way. You know, all my coaches are heroes to me. That's why they're my coaches, because I want to be around bigger players. But Paul come out of this phrase last week, and it's just make sure your headphones are in and kids aren't watching if you get to this point. But, you know, the phrase is, if that cunt can do it, then so can I. And I want every one of you to take that home, because I actually look at Marcus and think that, and I look at Paul and think that, because if we see it any other way, then again, we're living in a fixed mindset. And just the very reality that someone else has done or been something that you want to be is real and actual proof that you can do it too. We are not special. We've just done it a bit longer. And again, like Paul says again, every black belt's just a white belt who refused to give up. Yeah. It's that simple. So final thing before I let you go, voice note you left me, so poignant, and it's stuck with me forever. Just before Christmas, when we were building up into the 24-hour run, Marcus said to me on a voice note, yada, 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 probably called me a cunt a few times, and then said, hopefully today you've got your son. If not, you've got yourself. And it's stuck with me forever, because all I hear so often is, so-and-so's not supporting me. This person isn't helping me. This person keeps letting me down. I would never treat other people like that. Why is this person behavior? And just drill down on me, if we've got 2 minutes, Marcus, just quickly on how important that is to know that all you really need is yourself.
I think it brings, mate, you've obviously done one of these or 2 of these before, because you know how to bring everything together for the finale. So, I mean, that's what this is all about. This whole, it's a lot of stuff might sound somehow contradictory, right? Because we want to be good to others. We want to build this nice team around us, as I was saying, sort of at the top there. We want to do, you know, we want to be good people, but it's very difficult very difficult to have the correct playbook, decision-making process if we don't understand ourselves. Like, it's so hard. And I will re-say what I've said. I'm not going to say anything different in the next couple of minutes. I'm going to re-say what I've said, is that you will only find the answers within. There's an amazing book called The Untethered Soul. And if any of this is resonating with any of you, have a read of it. Everything, every answer you need is within.
By? If you can remember.
Pass. Very
Google,
naughty.
We'll ask Google The Untethered Soul.
The Untethered Soul. It's on my website under books. It's there, but you can just Google it. Once we understand within, and there is a limit to this, huh? You can have enough of dickheads like Lee, me, and Tony Robbins. We're in the same category, mate. Don't worry. You know, you can have enough of idiots like us that we just
need to stop saying fucking cunt if we want to get to his level. We can't be doing that on stage.
Totally, mate. You know, I use a lot of gurus and environment stuff that I spoke about before, but I also spend time on my own. Once you understand yourself, or once you accept that your happiness, your motivation, your drive in life, and therefore in the people that are around you, your team, is largely centered about you knowing who the fuck you are and what the fuck you want, then the whole game changes.
And that's two questions we can ask ourselves every morning, right?
Yeah. And honestly, mate, like, I wrote a blog post on this on my blog about, 7, 8, 10 years ago, because people would come to me.
Where can people find your blog and your website, by the way?
mjdsmith.com.
Cool.
So my initials, mjdsmith.com. My Instagram's mjd_smith. There's a load of shit on there.
There's literally a metric fuck ton of free content that's in.
Yeah. Should spend more time working. But this probably really sums everything up. And there's an article on there that says, who are you and why are you here? And a dude came to see me and he said, I asked him those questions and he replied and basically said, I don't know, I'm John, I want to get strong. And I was like, nah, mate, I'm not interested in that as an answer. I want to know who you really are. I want to know what your vision is for yourself, where the fuck you want to go to. And I want to know what brought you here. And what brought you here, guys, is the values that you live by. It's your DNA. And this shit's hard. It's hard. Like, companies do it, vision and values, and it means fuck all to anyone except the guy that wrote it. Unless that company has a culture of really pushing that out to the people. And that's one thing I've tried to do within my company. I'm like, we're going to live by these rules. Are you happy? I only want people in the room with me that get those rules and that shit resonates. We've got to do that on a personal level. But who are you and why are you here is super, super important. It might sound like a load of shit right now as you listen to what I'm saying, because you can't quite reference it. But when you go down the route and then you start to live by that, it really does start to change, because it makes everything super easy. A lot of decisions that people are struggling with, if it's related to life, if it's related to health and fitness, you're essentially, because you understand yourself better, you create a decision-making process that you then program your subconscious that if someone asks you to go out on a Thursday night for a beer, it's super simple to say no, because it's a non-negotiable that you've created through your decision-making process. Whereas now, if I'm still programmed from my subconscious from university, when Lee used to always want to go out drinking with me, I'd constantly say yes. Like, you just would, because there's no rules in place. There's no values in place, because at 22, you don't really fucking need it.
Yeah, you are.
And you shouldn't, like, it's freakish when you get a 20-year-old and they come and they speak to me, I want a job, and I'm this and I'm that. I'm like, I'm always a little bit off. I'm like, really? Like, this guy is far too in tune with what's going on. So it's something that happens. as we progress. But to wrap it, mate, understand self. Ask yourself those questions. What am I excited about? What's fulfilling me in today? Who am I? Why the fuck am I here? If you stick close to that, spend a little bit more time on your own, no tech, no dickheads like me and you talking to everyone, mate, then you'll you'll definitely, over time, it won't be super fast. Some shit, it's almost like when you go in a calorie deficit, which is shit anyway, or when you start training, like your curve, you get massive gains straight away and then it sort of dribbles off. Sometimes it happens like that. It's not linear. Sometimes you'll think you figured out who you are and then you'll have a relapse. That's okay, as long as we understand why. But life will get infinitely better if you invest in time, in understanding that all the answers of everything you want to fucking know, not on Google, they'll start here. And it's all in there.
Mate, thank you so much. I cannot express the level of gratitude for you giving us your time today. Thank you so much.
I love it.
Nothing but love. See you soon, brother.
Cheers, bud.
Take care, buddy.